Hey guys, tonight we drift way back thousands of years into the soft, linen-scented world of ancient Egypt. The air is dry, the Nile is low, and somewhere in the sleepy city of Thebes, a man is counting pillows. Not gold, not grain, not military chariots, pillows, feathered ones, linen-wrapped, possibly enchanted, possibly cursed. You trudge down a narrow alley just before dawn, past sandstone homes that still radiate the warmth of yesterday's sun. Pottery clinks in the distance, and somewhere, a goat bleats like it too didn't get a full 8 hours. Your first day as a junior Wasernak. That's official talk for Pillow Counter begins now. And honestly, you're wondering what on earth your career counselor was thinking. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You duck through a low archway and enter your apprenticeship chamber. It's humble if your idea of humble includes shelves sagging under bolts of linen, clay jars labeled in red ochre, and a sleepy middle-aged man dozing on a stone bench with a quill in his nose. That's Hesapa, your mentor, a man who, legend has it, once triple-counted Queen Tia's funeral cushions without a single recount. You're pretty sure he hasn't blinked since the last dynasty. Sit, he grunts. Without opening his eyes, count. You're handed a reed scroll and a basket filled with small, thumb-sized replicas of pillows made from fired clay. These are inventory tokens. Each represents a real pillow stored somewhere in the warehouse labyrinth behind the chamber. And no, you can't just shake the basket and guess. The pillow economy in ancient Egypt, it turns out, is no joke. They're not just for sleeping. Some are for rituals, some are offerings, some are politically sensitive, and a few are decoys to catch thieves or curse breakers. That soft headrest in the corner might contain sacred herbs or a mummified rat. Or both. You jot notes with a reed stylus on a sheet of papyrus stretched tight on your lap. Outside, the sun begins to peek over the walls of Thebes, and the market square stirs awake with the sounds of haggling, sandals scraping on stone, and one inexplicably loud man selling garlic braids. Hesepa finally opens one eye. If you think this job is dull, wait until you do the temple audit. You chuckle nervously, because you're still not sure whether he's joking. He rarely is. Historically, pillows in ancient Egypt weren't what you'd call fluffy. The common pillow was actually a curved wooden or stone headrest designed to support the neck and keep fancy hairdos pristine. But for the elite, oh, they had the good stuff. Ostrich feather cushions wrapped in the finest linen, sometimes perfumed with myrrh or lavender. You'll be cataloging those carefully with gloves and possibly an apotropaic chant or two. You make your way to the storeroom, escorted by a young assistant named Niti, who seems far too excited about thread counts. This one, she says, lifting a gauze-wrapped specimen, was once owned by the high priest of Ptah. Smells like cedar and ambition. Your first real counting task involves verifying the ceremonial pillow sets used during the Feast of the Valley. You run your fingers over smooth linen embroidered with tiny lotuses, still vibrant after decades in the dark. Some are shaped like lions, others like crocodiles. You pause at one particularly odd item, flat, triangular, and humming with a faint metallic smell. Nettie shrugs. Historians still argue whether that one was for the head or the knees. You mark it down as ambiguous and move on. Later, you're assigned to clean and inspect a shipment from Memphis. Among the standard camel hair bolsters, you find a scroll tucked inside one. A love letter from a merchant to his snoring wife. It reads, "I would endure your thunderous dreaming 1,000 nights more, if only to see you smile at dawn." Cute. And possibly historically authentic, or maybe just embroidered PR. Around midday, you're already questioning your choices in life. Counting is one thing, but there's also weighing, sniffing, lightly squeezing, and consulting reference paintings in case a pillow has been redesigned. One suspiciously firm specimen leads Hesepa to whisper, "That one, don't touch the center. Scorpion deterrent." You put it down, very slowly, Throughout the day, customers stop by the inventory office. One man demands a refund on a priest-blessed sleep cushion that didn't give him prophetic dreams. A noblewoman insists her ceremonial swan feather pillow was switched for goose. You briefly wonder if it matters, and then remember the swan was sacred to Isis. So yes, it matters. A lot. By late afternoon, the light filtering through the linen-curtained window glows golden. You stretch your back and glance at the tall shelf labeled "To be dreamed upon." Each pillow in that section is destined to appear in temple rituals or under the heads of mummies during burial rites. You're told to treat them with the same reverence you'd give a sacred scroll or a slightly annoyed cobra. Your final task of the day is to enter all your findings into the linen ledger. It's massive, bound in dyed leather, and smells like 5 generations of stress. You write in the narrow, careful hand Hesepa demands. Pillow 10 to D2. Ceremonial. Ostrich down. Blue-dyed linen. Minor fraying on left tassel. Smells faintly of juniper and divine judgment. You close the ledger. You survived your first day. Barely. Tomorrow, you're headed to the royal court. You wake up before the sun does. Again. But this time, you're not reporting to the musty storeroom. No, today you're being summoned to the palace. The big leagues. Royal feathers. Pharaoh-approved thread counts. You try to act casual as you make your way through the still drowsy streets of Thebes, but your tunic is sweating faster than your thoughts can keep up. The palace looms in the distance, its sandstone walls glowing faintly in the pre-dawn light. Like a giant loaf of bread baked by the gods, scribes shuffle past you carrying scrolls taller than toddlers. Servants dart between pillars with trays of something suspiciously damp. And the air smells like lilies, warm copper, and court-level paranoia. You're met at the eastern gate by a man named Beck, a stern-faced overseer with a shaved head and the posture of someone who hasn't smiled since the last solar eclipse. Follow. Do not speak unless spoken to, and do not sit on anything stuffed. Duly noted. He leads you past murals of Horus and Ra down a corridor lined with polished alabaster until you reach a side chamber that smells unmistakably of goose oil, sandalwood, and secrets. This, Beck announces, is the pillow annex of the inner court. Only 2 other people are allowed in. One is Beck. The other, you learn, is a woman named Manira, whose job title is apparently Feather Integrity Oracle. You're not sure if that's a religious role, but she's holding a golden rod and whispering to a cushion. You're given your task with almost ceremonial gravity. Assess, record, and prepare the court's festival headrests for the upcoming celebration of Opet. This includes the pharaoh's personal dream bolsters, the queen's ceremonial slumber brace, and a truly overcomplicated contraption known as the night throne, which appears to be a 4-pillow stack mounted on a lacquered step stool. Comfortable. Probably not. Symbolic. Absolutely. It's Egypt. Now, one mainstream fact. The ancient Egyptians took sleep and dreams seriously. They believed dreams were messages from the gods. Royal dreams. Even more so. The pharaoh's pillow wasn't just a comfort item, it was practically state infrastructure. Entire decisions could hinge on how well the king slept the night before. Your inspection begins with the queen's headdress. It's wrapped in lotus blue linen, embroidered with tiny cartouches, and smells faintly of crushed jasmine. Manira hovers behind you, mumbling something about imbalance in the down energy. You nod thoughtfully and poke it with the stylus. Soft, but not too soft. Resilient. With no obvious signs of feather fraudulence, you give it a tentative pass. Then comes the pharaoh's pillow. A gleaming piece wrapped in white linen, so pristine you suspect it's blessed hourly. It's heavier than expected, which you soon realize is because it's been weighed down with semi-precious stones stitched into the lining for grounding the soul during astral travel. Manira explains, sure, or maybe to discourage pillow theft. You examine the night throne last. Beck frowns as you lift at the top layer and discover scandalously a patch of uneven stuffing. One side is slightly lopsided, enough to tilt a royal dream at a dangerous 3-degree slant. Unacceptable, he mutters, already summoning a replacement from the linen keepers. You're told this particular pillow was imported from the Fayum oasis, allegedly blessed by 3 separate temple priests, and according to the record, had once cured a noble of sleep-talking in 6 nights flat. Historians still argue whether that noble ever existed. or if he was just an early marketing ploy by the feather guilds. Either way, the pillow gets flagged. Your report is signed, sealed, and stored in a lacquered box along with a papyrus strip bearing your name. Manira gives you a nod, which you're told is a rare honor. You bask in it for exactly 3 seconds before Beck hisses. There's been a situation. Apparently, one of the royal guards mistook a ceremonial bolster for a training dummy. It's now bent at a tragic angle and smells suspiciously of sweat and guilt. You're dispatched to perform a quiet damage assessment before the court steward notices. You arrive to find a very guilty-looking soldier standing over the pillow in question, trying to reshape it using his elbows. You sigh and start scribbling notes. Severe crimping in dorsal quadrant. Decorative tassel has been gnawed. The guard shrugs. You document everything and gently suggest the bolster be reassigned to the Festival of Bastet, where asymmetry is considered spiritually freeing. Afterward, you get a quick break in the court's administrative atrium, where junior officials gather to grumble about papyrus quotas and feather delivery delays. One man from the accounts office mentions a rising scandal. Someone's been diluting imported goose-down pillows with marshland fluff from the Delta. Soft as shame. That stuff, he says, shaking his head. You file it away in your mental folder marked things that will definitely become your problem later. As you prepare to leave, Beck stops you. His Majesty requests a test sample, something suitable for divine sleep. This is not a casual request. You're to design a new pillow from scratch materials, shape, scent, all within 2 days. No pressure. You nod solemnly, bow respectfully, and walk out of the palace with the nervous energy of a cat that's just been handed a baby. The sun is high now, glaring off the palace walls as you step into the city's noise again. Your arms ache. Your scrolls are full, and you've just been given the cushiest death sentence in Egypt. Tomorrow, it's time to shop for feathers. The next morning finds you elbow-deep in a place that smells like every bird in Egypt gave up at once. The Theban Feather Market, or, as the locals call it, the Fluff Zone. It's not just a bazaar. It's a battleground of bartering, squawking, and enough airborne particles to give Ra himself an allergy attack. You've been tasked with creating the Pharaoh's new divine sleep prototype pillow, and that means only the finest ingredients: ostrich down, goose quill feathers, rare Nubian linen, and something scented, but not too scented. Last year's frankincense-infused pillow allegedly caused prophetic nightmares involving upside-down pyramids and politically inconvenient crocodiles. You wander past stalls stacked with bolts of dyed cloth, pyramids of cedar shavings, and baskets full of feathers in every imaginable condition: pristine, curled, half-burnt, suspiciously damp, and one labeled haunted half-price. You're tempted, but not today. The first stallholder you approach is a bearded man named Pehenwe, whose claim to fame is that he once plucked a goose in under 30 seconds while blindfolded. He proudly shows off a bundle of his best work: pure goose, raised on pomegranates, and the fear of failure. You gently squeeze the feathers. They're plush, yes, but a little too fragrant. The pomegranate has left its mark. Next, you encounter an older woman named Iset, who insists her ostrich down is temple grade. She offers you a test bag to sniff. It smells like divine forgiveness. You scribble a note: potential top layer filler. Avoid near-scented oils already perfect. You keep moving, navigating the feather alleys with the seriousness of a man choosing clouds to catch the dreams of gods. Along the way, you learn a few things. The best feather sorters are often blindfolded, relying on texture and sound to determine quality. Some feathers are dyed using beetle shells and indigo to match the religious seasons. There's a black market trade in faux phoenix down, which is just peacock fluff soaked in wine and lies. You stop at a stall that seems too clean, too polished. The seller is slick, with a perfectly trimmed beard and sandals that gleam unnaturally. Imported Nubian cotton casing, he whispers, stuffed with Delta hair and down, guaranteed to bring dreams of lotus fields and tax exemptions. Bold claim. You ask for a sample and quickly realize the stuffing is sand. With a few loose duck feathers shoved in for drama, you walk away before he starts quoting dream testimonials. The feather market is noisy, chaotic, and let's be honest, hilariously over the top for a society that once buried kings with their kidneys in jars. But here's a mainstream fact. In ancient Egypt, pillows weren't merely tools for sleep. They were symbols of status, religious objects, and occasionally, political tools. Certain shapes were associated with specific deities. Certain materials were used only during rituals. And feathers, they had to come from the right bird, or the whole dream could turn sideways. You eventually find a quiet stall on the edge of the market. No shouting, no elaborate signage. Just a woman named Nebet and her apprentice, spinning linen thread while humming a lullaby. She doesn't pitch you anything, just hands you a tiny satchel of down and nods. You squeeze it, whisper light, dry, neutral scent, as close to perfection as you felt all morning. How much, you ask? Nebet shrugs. For you, 2 bolts of silence and a promise you won't ruin it with perfume. You pay in actual debens. But the point is made. This isn't fluff for just anyone. As you leave the stall, a young boy runs up with a clay tag bearing the royal seal. It's from Beck. The Pharaoh's sleep astrologer has requested lunar symmetry in the pillow's layout. You are to arrange the stuffing to reflect the waxing moon. No explanation, just a deadline. You find a shady spot under a tamarisk tree and begin sketching the layout on papyrus. 3 chambers soft, softer, softest, with feather density tapering in a crescent arc. You scribble a prayer to Thoth in the margins, just in case the gods are micromanaging. On your way out of the market, a scrappy man with 1 tooth and no sense of shame offers you a limited edition Pharaoh face-shaped pillow. You decline. Though you admire the craftsmanship, nose detail is surprisingly accurate. By late afternoon, you're back in the preparation room, measuring linen and blending feathers with oils, just a touch of lavender and lotus extract. You recall that in some temples, sleep was treated like a form of pilgrimage. Worshippers would lie on sacred headrests and hope to receive healing dreams. And here you are, making a dream catcher for a living god. No pressure. Nettie stops by with a cup of tamarind water. She peeks at your work and nods approvingly. That's actually not terrible, she says. You thank her, because in pillow crafting terms, that's basically a standing ovation. Before you wrap the casing, you insert a strip of embroidered linen with the Pharaoh's personal cartouche, so he knows it's his, Beck had said. Or so the gods do. Same thing. Really, by evening, you place the finished pillow inside a cedar-lined case, seal it with wax, and bow low as Beck takes it from your hands. He nods, says nothing, walks off, but his pace is slightly less terrifying than usual. You're exhausted. You're covered in lint. You're sneezing feathers, and you just handcrafted the most important pillow in Egypt. You wake up the next morning expecting a bit of rest, maybe even a light schedule of counting wall cushions or documenting minor pillow stains. But no, there's a summons on your doorstep. This time, not from the palace, it's from the temple of Bes. Yes, that Bes, the lion-faced dwarf god of dreams, protection, and bedposts carved to look like bears. And he apparently needs help organizing his sacred sleep paraphernalia. You set off toward the temple district under the rising sun. The city is already buzzing merchants, sweeping thresholds, fishmongers shouting about river-caught catfish with suspiciously landlocked eyes, and scribes hustling with scrolls that always seem slightly on fire. The Temple of Bes is tucked between 2 larger sanctuaries, one honoring Hathor, goddess of music and joy, and the other dedicated to Anubis, god of embalming and unblinking stares. In contrast, Bes's temple is painted in vibrant ochre and green, with columns shaped like fat drumsticks and carvings of people yawning. You immediately like it. Inside, you're greeted by a high priest with an elaborate mustache and no shoes. Ah, the pillow one, he says, as though you're a rare breed of desert lizard. We've been expecting you. You're led into the Chamber of Soft Offerings, which is not, as you had hoped, a place where one naps professionally. It's more like a feathered archive. filled with ceremonial cushions, each used for a specific type of divine dream induction. This one's for fertile dreams, the priest explains, patting a leopard print headrest. That one invites messages from ancestors, and that one he gestures to a strange, triangular bolster with gold studs, is for sleepwalking prevention. Allegedly, your task today is to catalog and restore these sacred headrests, many of which have been gnawed by temple mice, or doused in questionable oils by overly enthusiastic worshippers. The room smells like herbs, linen, and something faintly like roasted chickpeas. You start gently brushing dust from a striped linen pillow embroidered with tiny baboons, being careful not to sneeze. One wrong puff and you'll be labeled the desecrator of sacred goose-down. Here's a mainstream fact. Ancient Egyptians frequently left offerings of pillows or headrests in temples, especially when praying for sleep-related blessings, fertility, peaceful dreams, divine visions. Bes, in particular, was believed to protect people from nightmares and nocturnal demons. His face was often carved onto headboards, charms, and yes, even pillows, sometimes with little arms stretching out in mid-snore, while restoring a particularly squishy cushion embroidered with protective runes. You uncover a small scroll hidden in the seam. It's a personal prayer from a woman named Hetepet, asking for relief from nightly visions of her husband turning into a baboon. Make the images stop. It pleads, but let the warm feet remain. You note it in your log. Possible sign of overexposure to temple incense or unresolved marital drama. Later, a younger acolyte leads you into a side chamber where special sleep kits are prepared for pilgrims. Each kit includes a small pillow, a scented oil blend, a Bes amulet, and a lullaby scroll written in hieratic script. You're asked to test one. You lie down on a ceremonial reed mat and rest your head on the sample. It smells of myrrh and nostalgia. A soft flute begins playing in another room, and for a moment, you wonder if you might actually nap. You don't, of course, because the acolyte is standing 2 feet away, watching you like a hawk, watching a sleep-deprived mouse. You rise with dignity and only a small groan and recommend slightly firmer neck support. 2 plush risks celestial misalignment. You explain, making it up entirely. The priest nods gravely. He'll pass that along to the Basin Council of Postural Authority, which might be fictional, but no one's correcting you. You spend the afternoon cataloging dream-related cushions brought by pilgrims. One woman donates a cracked alabaster headrest wrapped in faded blue gauze, claiming her son dreamt of being blessed by Horus while using it. Another man submits a lumpy green bolster stuffed with reeds and fish bones, keeps the dream swimming. He says proudly, "You are polite. You label it experimental. Not everything is divine. Some of the pillows are clearly reused kitchen cloth, and one is just a folded tunic with a sprig of mint tied to it. But the temple accepts all. Even sleep needs chaos," says the high priest, pouring himself a tiny cup of beer. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some scholars believe certain temple pillows contained mixtures of herbs like blue lotus, mandrake, and even hashish to encourage vivid dreams. Others argue they were simply stuffed with whatever didn't crunch too loudly. Historians still debate whether these dream rituals were widely practiced or limited to elite temple cults. You end your visit in the Sanctuary of Whispers, a quiet chamber where you must not speak. The floor is covered in thick woven mats, and cushions are arranged in concentric circles, like a sleepy sundial. In the center sits the largest headrest you've ever seen. It's shaped like a lion, carved from ebony, and its pillow portion is lined with gold-threaded silk. You're not allowed to touch it, but you do stare at it for a good long minute. Later, as you walk back through the temple courtyard, a child hands you a small clay model of Bes. It's lopsided. The eyes are too close together, but it makes you smile. You tuck it into your satchel, a blessing for peaceful dreams, or a reminder that today, you helped curate the divine snore. Back in your own chambers, you collapse onto your cot. No ceremonial pillows here, just a worn bolster that smells faintly of barley and ink. You think about the leopard print dream cushion, about the priest who murmured lullabies to clay figurines, about Hetepet and her baboon husband dreams. You fall asleep wondering what's stranger, the gods who guard our dreams, or the humans who try to catalog them. You're jolted awake the next morning not by the call of temple bells or a distant donkey argument, but by a knock from a very sweaty messenger clutching a scroll sealed with bread, no beeswax. Close enough. The message is from Hesepa, your mentor, and it's short. Come immediately. Pillow tax audit. 3 words that strike more dread than a visit from a hungry crocodile priest. You throw on your tunic, grab your ledger, and head to the Bureau of Linen and Light Sleep, an unimpressive building crammed between a sausage vendor and a building that sells nothing but papyrus bookmarks of Nefertiti's side profile. Inside, it smells like stale ink and mild panic. Hesepa greets you with his usual warmth, a grunt and a piece of cold barley cake. We've lost 24 tax pillows, he says, unblinking, or they've become invisible. Either way, the scribes are denying everything. You follow him into the auditing chamber, which sounds like it should involve math, but mostly contains scrolls, angry clerks, and one suspiciously well-rested scribe named Penny, who's whistling. Always a bad sign. Let's pause here for a mainstream fact. In ancient Egypt, taxes weren't always paid in silver or wheat. Often, they came in the form of goods, including textiles and, yes, even pillows. Wealthy citizens might owe ceremonial bedding for temple festivals or royal events. These were recorded meticulously in ledgers, which were then cross-referenced with physical stock. Unless, of course, someone misfiled a shipment into their cousin's guest bedroom. Your job: cross-check the ledgers from last season's Nile flooding festival with what's actually in the pillow warehouse. Sounds simple, except nothing matches. You point out that pillow entry 1830B, listed as one goose-down bolster with an embroidered ibis, appears to have been replaced with sack of sand, vaguely shaped like a hippo. Penny shrugs. Maybe it's conceptual. You don't laugh. Neither does Hesepa. Nettie arrives with her own findings. 3 of the entries have identical weight notations, but different descriptions. One's a sacred sleep roll. One's a traveling prayer mat. One's labeled just pillow. Don't ask. All of them share the same signature. Penny's. You pull him aside. He insists it's all a clerical misunderstanding. I'd never steal a pillow, he says, adjusting his suspiciously new-looking headrest on the office cot. I might misinterpret one. But that's art. You suggest he surrender the headrest for inspection. It's lined with linen imported from Kush and smells of rare ambergris. Definitely not bureau standard. Gift from an admirer, he claims. You write that down and circle it 3 times. The pillow tax system, as it turns out, is ripe with loopholes. A farmer might donate a bolster in the shape of Horace's favorite dream, and suddenly it's exempt from standard inspection. One noblewoman allegedly paid her tax in the form of a 14-foot ceremonial cushion meant to be shared communally by those of equal moral fiber. Whatever that means, you and Hesepa review the quarterly submissions, looking for any repeat offenders. The name Nebkaura keeps appearing, a wealthy importer with a soft spot for velvet and a long-standing feud with the Feather Guild. His pillows are always delayed in transport or currently infused with blessing do not disturb. Convenient. You draft a formal note requesting an audit of his contributions and deliver it via messenger with a token of goodwill, a goose feather tied with a red ribbon. The messenger returns an hour later, covered in what appears to be scented chalk, holding a scroll that reads simply, "How dare you?" Penny, meanwhile, has vanished. His cot is empty. The suspicious pillow, also gone. You sigh and start rewriting the missing pillow report by hand. Pillow, 1844, vanished under mysterious circumstances. Possible link to rogue scribe. Smelled faintly of roasted thyme. Here's your quirky tidbit. Scholars have found fragments of actual complaint scrolls in ancient archives, where scribes aired their frustrations about pillow counting. One scribe even drew a doodle of himself drowning in goose feathers, accompanied by the phrase, "May Thoth grant me a different life." Relatable. By late afternoon, you've sorted enough of the ledger to identify a pattern. The missing pillows correspond to festival dates when shipments from Upper Egypt were delayed due to crocodile migration. So, Nettie suggests either the pillows were eaten or Penny has a timing-based feather scheme. You opt for the latter and quietly alert the palace auditors. They'll follow the goose trail, so to speak. Before you leave, Hesipa hands you a bundle wrapped in plain cloth, old tax cushion, retired from circulation. Use it well. Inside is a modest headrest, simple linen, slightly lumpy, but clearly made with care. Why me, you ask? He shrugs. You showed up. That's more than most. You walk home that evening with the cushion tucked under your arm. The streets glow orange with the setting sun, and you feel oddly proud. You didn't find every missing pillow, but you found enough to make someone nervous. And in ancient Egypt, that's practically a promotion. You dream of pillows that night. Endless shelves of them collapsing in domino lines, each one embroidered with the words, "Don't touch," in increasingly aggressive calligraphy. You wake up tangled in your sheet, reach for your new tax cushion, and whisper, "You better be normal." Today's assignment is slightly less bureaucratic and significantly more bizarre. You've been invited voluntarily, allegedly, to assist in a sacred sleep study involving dream pillows. Yes, dream pillows, not just cushions. These are spiritually enhanced, herb-stuffed vessels designed to guide, block, or even decode dreams. You'll be helping the Temple of Serket, goddess of healing and dreams. With their annual inspection of protective sleep gear, you're not entirely sure what qualifies you for this, but your name's on the scroll and someone's drawn a tiny feather next to it. So off you go. The temple is smaller than you expected, low-built with pale stone walls and shaded by palms. Inside, it's cool and dark, and the air smells curious, a mix of dried flowers, beeswax, fermented fig, and something that can only be described as spiritually damp. You're greeted by a woman in a silver-threaded robe who introduces herself as Akhet. "We're testing efficacy," she explains, leading you to a side room filled with low beds and pillows marked with colorful tokens. Your job is to inspect and record physical features. My job is to determine which dreams came true. No pressure. Each pillow is tagged with the name of a sleeper, the herbs used in stuffing, and the intended dream effect. You read aloud as you go. Kenamun, mandrake, and mint. Desired dream. Wife returns from desert. Menet, poppy, and honey balm. Desired dream. More goats. You examine the casing, soft cotton, slightly frayed at the corners. The scent is sharp but pleasant. The mandrake root leaves a powdery residue on your fingertips. You record moderately plush, strong aroma. Risk of goat confusion. You think you're joking, but Akhet nods seriously. "We had a shepherd once dream his flock started reciting poetry. He sold them." As the morning drifts on, you start recognizing patterns. Dream pillows aimed at fertility tend to be firmer, stuffed with warm, scented herbs like cinnamon and myrrh. Protection dreams favor the bitter wormwood, garlic, even powdered crocodile dung. You hesitate over that last one, reading the label twice. "Yes," says Akhet, "dung stuffing. Spiritually repellent." You nod slowly. It's also people repellent. Here's a mainstream fact. The use of aromatic herbs in bedding was widespread in the ancient world, particularly in Egypt. Aside from the spiritual purposes, it helped deter pests and sweeten personal spaces. But some combinations were believed to influence dreams. Poppy, lotus, mandrake, they weren't just pleasant scents. They were medicinal and possibly prophetic. Akhet takes you into the test chamber, a quiet room where selected volunteers spend the night with their assigned dream pillows. Their visions are recorded by scribes listening behind a reed curtain. You're invited to review their logbooks. One entry reads, "Subject dreamed of blue-winged ibis delivering scroll. Interpretation. Favorable news from cousin. Subject dreamed of melting crocodile. Interpretation. Digestive trouble or spiritual rebirth. Subject dreamed of no dreams. Interpretation. Elite pillow. Functions successful spiritual shielding." You're told that dreamless sleep is the gold standard, a sign the mind is fully guarded. Of course, some believe this also means the pillow has absorbed the dream entirely, like a sponge. You eye the stack of older pillows in the corner and silently hope none are dripping. Then Akhet shows you the misbehaving pillows once suspected of producing erratic or unintended dreams. One was supposed to induce visions of deceased relatives. Instead, it caused recurring dreams about angry donkeys. Another was crafted to summon guidance from the gods, but the user claimed he just dreamed of falling endlessly into a pit full of tax scrolls. You inspect the stuffing and notice a stray ingredients, fennel seed, might be acting as a dream amplifier. You murmur, Akahet raises an eyebrow, or the gods just enjoy chaos. Here's a quirky tidbit. Archaeological evidence shows that some elite tombs contained pillows filled not just with herbs or feathers, but with resin-soaked wrappings or exotic spices, likely for symbolic protection in the afterlife. It's entirely possible some of these sleep aids weren't designed for human dreams at all. After lunch, you're asked to craft your own dream pillow under Akhet's guidance. You're handed a length of soft linen, a small satchel of dried lotus petals, blue chamomile, and crushed date skin. This blend encourages gentle reflection, she says, or possibly dreams of rivers. You stitch carefully, fold the mixture into the casing, and write your name on a clay tag. It's placed onto one of the test cots for overnight analysis. We'll let you know what someone else dreams with it, she says, smiling, slightly ominous. If you're honest, as you gather your things, Akhet offers one final warning. Never sleep on a pillow you didn't count yourself. They remember more than people think. You walk out into the warm sun, brain humming with the scent of herbs and the idea of dreams that ferment like honey wine. Pillow counting, it turns out, isn't always about inventory. Sometimes it's about memory, scent, and the invisible stories stitched into linen seams. You sleep lightly that night, just in case. Your first clue that something's different today is the scroll waiting for you at breakfast, sealed not with wax, but with a tiny piece of spine-stiffening cedar bark. You crack it open and immediately wish you hadn't. The Pharaoh is having back problems. You're not sure who decided that this is your problem, but clearly, somewhere in a towering office stacked with papyrus and paranoia, someone connected two ideas. The Pharaoh hasn't been sleeping well. You work with pillows. The result, you've been summoned to the royal rest chamber to evaluate, recommend, and optimize the Pharaoh's ceremonial headrest system. You reread the scroll, searching for a hidden joke. There isn't one. You arrive at the palace mid-morning, already sweating through your nicest linen. Beck meets you outside the royal quarters with a look of pure exhaustion. He's been cranky, he warns, said his spirit is tilting left. Do not mention slouching. You're led into a room so opulent it makes your storage warehouse look like a goat shed. Gilded columns, lotus-carved wall panels, carpets thicker than a courtier's ego, and in the middle, the Pharaoh's ceremonial sleeping platform, more sculpture than bed. Atop it sits a half-circle headrest, carved from polished ebony, inlaid with electrum stars. You've seen ceremonial pillows before, but this one looks more like a low altar. You approach slowly, notebook in hand. Here's a mainstream fact. Pharaohs didn't use the plush, soft pillows we know today. Their headrests were often wooden or stone-arched to elevate the head and preserve elaborate wigs or braids. But ceremonial pieces like this were meant to bridge the earthly and divine during sleep, keeping the spine aligned with the stars. You give it a gentle tap. Solid. Too solid. You murmur, maybe a slight overemphasis on stability. Beck hisses. He's right behind the curtain. There's a rustle. A grumble. The stars shift while I rest. A voice calls out, why should my bones not follow? You suppress a cough and bow toward the curtain. Great one. Your discomfort honors the gods with its symmetry. There's silence. Then a grunt. You will take it as permission to proceed. You begin your assessment, assisted by a nervous sleep astrologer who hands you a chart showing how the Pharaoh's head angle must correspond with Sirius, the Nile flood, and Mercury's slightly annoying energy. You suggest a triple-layered support system, a stiff ceremonial base unmoved, a padded herbal lining scented with lavender and cedar, and a detachable dream cushion, stuffed with fine goose-down and embroidered with the protective eye of Horus. The astrologer gasps, down? For royalty. Beck shrugs. He sat on a velvet stool yesterday. The world didn't end. You're ushered into the royal crafting chamber, where a team of 4 artisans hover, ready to make whatever your feather-filled brain can conjure. You draw diagrams, explain angles, and caution against anything that might squeak. Squeaking is spiritually destabilizing. You claim, entirely making it up. No one questions you. Nettie arrives with a bundle of imported feathers from Nubia, ethically plucked. She notes, Probably. You start constructing the dream cushion by hand, muttering your favorite fake prayers under your breath. Oh, spirit of perfect posture, guide my seams. Hours later, the new headrest is ready. Ebony base, chamomile laced insert, feather-padded overlay embroidered in gold thread. You present it with the solemnity of a man offering a small, extremely precious cloud. The pharaoh appears from behind the curtain. His eyes are half closed. His hair is immaculate. He looks at the headrest, then at you, then back at the headrest. He lies down, slowly, presses the back of his neck against the feathered rest, closes his eyes. You don't move. No one does. A long pause. Then, the faintest exhale. Less tilt, he murmurs. More sleep. You're not sure if that's approval or poetry, but Beck gives a microscopic nod. He didn't hate it, he whispers. That's a win. As you gather your notes, a court steward slips you a scroll. Keep working on the back support series. Also, leg cushions, possibly thigh rest. One for elbow. He shrugs. You've started something. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some royal tombs include body-shaped cushions designed to cradle each limb for eternity. One archaeologist described them as the world's most luxurious mummification packing peanuts. Historians still argue whether ceremonial sleep supports were ever used regularly or if they were purely symbolic. You, having now seen a pharaoh test snooze with absolute sincerity, are leaning toward yes. You leave the palace under a purple dusk sky, escorted like someone who may or may not have just solved national spinal alignment. The city bustles, none the wiser that Egypt's most powerful man is currently face-deep in the finest pillow you've ever made. Back at your room, you collapse onto your own modest cushion, already calculating how you might scale this up. Maybe start a line of Pharaoh-fit sleep gear, or Bess-approved back bliss. You chuckle into your linen and drift off, dreaming of thrones, feathers, and spine-pleasing glory. By now, you think you've seen most things the pillow world has to offer: herb-stuffed dream devices, sacred snore suppressors, and a pharaoh's midnight spine realignment. But nothing prepares you for what arrives next: a theft. Specifically, a noble's ceremonial pillow has gone missing. Not just any noble lady Taranet, High Priestess of Hathor, known across Thebes for her enormous shoulder pads and her unwavering devotion to feather-based luxury. The missing item, a swan-down sleeping pillow embroidered with rose gold thread and scented with frankincense, blue lotus, and hubris. It vanishes the night after a temple festival. No forced entry, no broken locks, just an open cedar box and a confused servant who claims she only looked away to sneeze. Naturally, Hesepa nominates you to investigate. You're detail-oriented. He says, and you don't steal. The bar is low, but fair. Your first stop is Lady Taranet's estate. A two-story marvel of whitewashed walls, courtyard fountains, and more hanging linens than a festival laundry line. Her pillow chamber is serious business. A full logbook, display racks, a separate incense catalog. She greets you wearing a tunic that probably costs more than your yearly ration of barley and says, if my pillow isn't found, I shall report this to the Bureau of Emotional Distress. You nod solemnly. We'll leave no feather uncounted. The investigation begins with a standard linen trace, examining the chamber for loose threads, indentations, and scent trails. Nettie joins you, excited by the idea of pillow forensics. I've always wanted to swab a tassel, she whispers. You find a faint trail of sandalwood oil leading toward the garden. There, tucked behind a clay planter shaped like Hathor's face, lies a single swan feather. Definitely from the missing pillow, it's unusually long and smells like egotism. You interview the staff. One kitchen boy claims he saw a servant carrying something suspiciously squishy past the fountain. A maid insists she smelled lotus oil on someone who definitely doesn't deserve to smell that good. You're narrowing it down. Then comes the twist. You visit the market to question local pillow repairers, just in case someone tried to sneakily recase the stolen fill. At a dusty stall in the weaving quarter, a craftsman named Menkau offers you something strange. A pillow cover dropped off that morning, matching Lady Taranet's specifications exactly, but missing all its stuffing. The person who brought it, tall, nervous, carried a camel hair cloak. You exchange looks with Nettie, A camel, she says, was seen chewing something fluffy near the gate yesterday. You rush back to the estate and find it Terenet's ceremonial camel, tied under a fig tree, staring into the void as only camels can. Nettie checks the feeding trough. Sure enough, there's swan fluff, half digested, lightly perfumed, possibly divine. You deliver the verdict. Your pillow has been partially digested by your own transport. Lady Terenet is aghast. Do you know how rare those feathers were? I had them smuggled past Nubian customs disguised as falcon bait. You offer condolences and suggest the camel be placed on a detoxifying herb blend to reduce lingering aromatics. Still, you must file an official report. Here's the mainstream fact to include. Ancient Egyptian households, particularly elite ones, often kept detailed inventories of textiles, including bedding, which were tracked by scribes and reviewed during audits. Theft of ceremonial items could lead to legal consequences, social humiliation, or forced relocation to a less impressive address. But here's the quirky bit. In some court cases, animals were genuinely charged with property destruction. One scroll even records a monkey being officially scolded by a judge for stealing a wig. So a camel pillow eater, entirely within historical precedent. Historians still argue whether these incidents were treated as legal proceedings or performance art. But either way, they were documented seriously to prevent future incidents. You're asked to help Lady Terenet upgrade her pillow chamber security. You suggest storing ceremonial pillows in scent-sealed reed chests, keeping all animals outside the inner compound, and, just as a bonus, employing a nocturnal guardian trained in feather detection. You expect this to be a joke. Terenet hires one that afternoon. By the end of the day, you've recovered most of the casing, traced the stuffing to an herb-soaked ruminant, and invented the phrase camel-based down compromise, which Beck later says sounds like a diplomatic scandal. You collapse onto your cot that night, brain buzzing with interrogations, missing fluff, and the sheer absurdity of papyrus-based police work. You fall asleep hugging your tax pillow and dream that your own linen has filed a theft complaint against your elbows. You've barely recovered from the camel incident when another assignment arrives, this time from the temple of Khonsu, god of the moon, time, and suspiciously specific schedules. You're to assist in aligning the pillow calendar with the lunar cycle for the upcoming festival of the moon of rest. You blink at the scroll for a long time. Pillow calendar. Turns out, in this corner of Egypt, sleep isn't just a bodily function, it's a cosmic event. The temple maintains an actual lunar-aligned bedding registry. Certain cushions are only used under specific phases of the moon. Some are for full moon clarity. Others are for new moon introspection. And a few are marked "Do not disturb during waxing gibbous," which you assume is a spiritual thing and not an ancient inside joke. You arrive at the temple courtyard under a pale morning sky. Just as a scribe is chalking symbols onto a wall sundial, you're greeted by a slender man with obsidian earrings and an air of exhausted precision. "I'm Panesi," he says, dreamkeeper and pillow archivist. "Welcome to our madness." Panesi leads you inside, through a colonnade etched with stars and moon phases, to the temple's chamber of restful timing. There, pillows are stacked in meticulous rows, each with a lunar glyph stitched into its corner and a tag denoting its assigned dates. "I hope you're good at math," Panesi says, handing you a chart that looks like someone threw feathers at an eclipse diagram. "We need to rotate the cushions for the next moon cycle." And cross-reference with the dream logs, you sit down with Nettie, who's joined you again, this time wearing a silver-threaded scarf to blend in spiritually, and begin the sorting. One pile is labeled "Third Quarter, Prophetic Dreams." Another says "First Crescent, Self-Reckoning." A third has no label, just an ominous spiral stitched in black thread. "Should we touch that one?" Nettie asks. You both decide? Not yet. Mainstream fact alert. The ancient Egyptians did believe certain days were more spiritually charged than others, particularly around the moon phases. Temples followed complex calendars that combined lunar, solar, and star-based timing systems. While we don't have definitive proof of pillow calendars, it's not a huge leap, especially given their obsession with ritual precision and sleep as divine communication. You work through the stacks, updating tags, sorting fabrics, and gently shifting fragrant cushions embroidered with tiny ibis, jackals, and cryptic hieroglyphs. Panesi explains that some are considered heavy dream anchors and must be used sparingly. Others, like the waxing wind pillow, are rotated in for restless sleepers. As you shift one particularly heavy headrest wrapped in silver-threaded linen, a small clay charm falls out a crescent moon with a sleepy cat carved on one side and a stern-looking goose on the other. Moon guardians. Panesi says, picking it up, cats protect the soul during dreams. The goose is just judgmental. Your favorite entry today is the Moontide Whisper Cushion, designed to be used during the full moon while consuming blue lotus tea and reflecting on one's inner lint. You write that down in your notebook for science. Here's your quirky tidbit. Some Egyptian dream manuals suggest that dreaming of linen or feathers meant peace, while dreaming of rotting cushions meant upcoming betrayal. There were even scribes who specialized in interpreting sleep visions, often keeping their own pillows wrapped in consecrated cloths to avoid dream contamination. You spend hours cataloging, adjusting, and updating entries in the lunar pillow register. Each one is annotated with a note: dream results satisfactory, or subject dreamed of a talking fish again. Consider reducing myrrh. Nettie reads aloud one that says, subject envisioned cat dancing with sun disk auspicious, but slightly unnerving. You wonder if these dreams are divine messages or just the result of bad lentil stew. As the day winds down, Panesi invites you to the Ritual of Rest rotation, a solemn ceremony in which selected temple members place the moon pillows in their proper lunar sequence. The room is lit only by oil lamps and a few shafts of sunlight piercing through star-shaped holes in the ceiling. Incense burns slowly. A priestess chants softly. Each pillow is carried like an offering and placed according to the moon chart you helped revise. Your chest swells just a bit. You've created order out of fluff, astronomy out of upholstery. But the final pillow, the one with the ominous spiral, remains untouched. Panesi eyes it warily. That one's for eclipses, he whispers. We haven't used it in decades. Too many teeth dreams. You believe him. That night, Panesi offers you a place to sleep in the temple's guest chamber. You're given a waning crescent cushion, a cool, lightly stuffed pillow meant to ease restless minds. You hesitate, then lie down and close your eyes. You dream of clouds shaped like hippos, of a moon slowly spinning into a feather, of a cat sitting on your chest asking for tax scrolls. You wake up calm, confused, but mostly calm. And in the morning, you leave with a new respect for the moon, the madness of pillow scheduling, and the quiet joy of putting things in their proper cosmic place. You're mid-scroll, jotting notes about lunar thread counts, when a runner arrives panting like he's been chased by. Said himself, emergency. He gasps, tomb, robbers, curse, missing cushions. You blink once. That's 4 emergencies. The runner merely nods and shoves a wax-stamped tablet into your hands. It's from the Office of Tomb Oversight and Ceremonial Sleep Preservation, a branch you had hoped was fictional. But no, they're real. And they've got a problem. A tomb has been broken into near the cliffs at Deir el Medina, a high-status burial. Lady Remahet, noted musician and pillow benefactor. The grave goods included 4 linen-wrapped sleep aids, 2 carved headrests, and 1 highly cursed dream cushion, supposedly embroidered with protective texts in invisible ink. Naturally, the pillow is missing. You're dispatched immediately. You travel by boat up the Nile, the breeze thick with silt and papyrus. As you disembark, the tomb looms ahead, carved into ochre stone and surrounded by nervous guards. One hands you a linen mask just in case and mutters something about sleep disturbances in the patrol tent. You descend into the burial chamber, lantern in hand. It's quiet. Too quiet. Dust motes float through stale air, catching in your nose. The scent is unmistakable: aged linen, dry herbs, and the faintest hint of rose oil. The tomb's contents are mostly intact: alabaster jars, painted coffers, a harp with half its strings snapped from time or curses. But the ceremonial bedding alcove is wrecked, torn bolts of fabric, shattered wooden headrests, and an ominous scorch mark across the wall mural depicting Bess doing the splits over a sleeping woman. Here's your mainstream fact. Wealthy Egyptians were often buried with headrests and cushions, not for comfort, but for spiritual protection. Head elevation was believed to aid breath in the afterlife. The right pillow might ensure peaceful rest. The wrong one, eternal backache and confusing reincarnation. You consult the tomb records. Lady Remahed had a custom-designed four realms pillow, one section for each cardinal direction, filled with different herbs to summon dreams of air, fire, water, and earth. Only one section remains, the others gone. You and Nettie, who's joined you again with an enthusiasm you can only describe as morbidly professional, begin searching the site. You find footprints, not human, feline, possibly cat, possibly guard cat. We need to interview the tomb keeper, Nettie says, already making a list of suspects. Also, that goose. It's been watching us for 10 minutes. The tomb keeper is a man named Huya, who swears he heard nothing but whispers and light coughing. The night of the robbery, he mentions that the head priest of the dream cult had recently visited, requesting to view Remahed's dream records. Suspicious. Possibly sleep-driven espionage. Then comes the fringe discovery. In a side chamber, beneath a slab etched with hieroglyphs of snoring crocodiles, you find a hidden alcove. Inside, an older headrest, untouched, covered in tiny protective symbols. In its center, sewn with black thread, is a warning. Let not the thief sleep, lest their dreams grow teeth. You pause. Historians still argue whether this was symbolic, you whisper, or very literal. You recover what you can from the tomb, logging every fragment, every feather, every stray curl of incense-scented stuffing. Back in the village, you file your report. The pillow was likely stolen for resale dream-stuffed cushions. Fetch a high price in certain spiritual black markets. You recommend a linen seal on the tomb and a temple blessing involving garlic, lunar salt, and very loud chanting. But that night, Nettie can't sleep. She tosses on her cot, mumbles something about biting pillows. So, you test the curse theory. You place a protective amulet beneath your own pillow, mutter a few lines from a bedtime hymn to Thoth, and drift off, only to dream of feathers with legs, of running headrests, of your own linen unraveling while a tiny version of Bess rides a camel made of stuffed goose. You wake up mildly terrified, but also impressed. Here's your quirky tidbit. In some rare cases, ancient dream manuals mention haunted cushions, items believed to retain the emotional residue of their owners. One case even suggested burning the pillow in a sacred fire to release the trapped dream. You briefly consider this before remembering your landlord doesn't allow open flames in the sleep quarters. The next day, you're honored with a new title from the Office of Tomb Oversight, Consultant of Ceremonial Bedding Security. It's long, it won't fit on your tunic, but it comes with a badge shaped like a headrest. So you're not complaining. You return to Thebes exhausted but proud. You helped solve a theft, avoided a curse, and possibly outwitted a goose. The pillow wars are far from over. You're enjoying a rare, quiet morning, just you, your half-finished barley cake, and a papyrus doodle of a headrest with wings when a new scroll arrives. This one is thicker, tied with an ominously straight ribbon, and stamped with the seal of the Ministry of Knightly Affairs. You groan. This department, you learn, is part of the sprawling Bureau of Civil Satisfaction and Emotional Harmony, known informally as the people who count how happy you are while you sleep. And now, you've been promoted unofficially to temporary assistant in the Bureau of Comfort. Your job: to file and analyze citizens' sleep reports submitted across Upper and Lower Egypt. Because yes, in a civilization that invented eye cosmetics and backgammon, there is also a government division tracking how comfortable everyone is when they sleep. You report to a dusty office wedged between the Registry of Beard Length Exceptions and the Department of River Silt Disputes. Inside, a woman named Hetep greets you with a warm smile and a stack of scrolls so large it has developed its own tilt. I hope you enjoy metadata, she says, cheerfully shoving a stylus into your hand. Each scroll is a sleep survey filled out by citizens, some voluntary, others strongly suggested by temple intermediaries. Questions include: did your pillow maintain structural integrity? Were your dreams pleasing, neutral, or goat-related? Did you wake up with all bones aligned? On a scale of 1 to 5, how emotionally cradled did you feel? You read through responses from all walks of life. A grain merchant from Memphis complains that his headrest is haunted by the spirit of his mother-in-law. A priest in Asyut writes, slept well, but the pillow smelled of ambition. And one scribe simply wrote, too many feathers. Felt judgment from the gods. You log the feedback into a massive linen-bound registry, each entry cross-referenced by region, class, and pillow material. Hetep nods approvingly. We'll send the results to the Provincial Comfort Committees next quarter. With interpretive charts, here's a mainstream fact. Ancient Egyptians kept incredibly detailed administrative records, including inventory, census, and labor logs. While we don't have surviving sleep surveys, their passion for categorizing daily life makes it believable they might have tracked how citizens were resting, especially if poor sleep was considered a sign of spiritual or political unrest. Around midday, Hetep hands you a special file, flagged reports from workers on a pyramid construction site outside Saqqara. Dozens of entries read, no headrest issued, forced to use brick wrapped in tunic. Dreams contained more sand than usual. That last one worries you. You propose a new initiative, the Commoner Comfort Reallocation Plan. It's basically just a way to send surplus linen and feather scraps to laborer housing. But Hetep likes the phrasing. Sounds expensive, she says, which means it must be important. You spend the afternoon drafting a pilot program. Pillows made from leftover temple cloth. Down donated by upper-class households in exchange for dream virtue credits. A traveling comfort scribe to record user satisfaction. It's half bureaucratic nonsense, half genuine compassion. Nettie stops by with a bundle of reports from the Delta region. She's grinning. Someone submitted a sketch of their pillow having an existential crisis. You look. Sure enough, a citizen from Mendez has drawn a headrest crying over a missing tassel. You file it under creative complaints. Investigate if time allows. Here's a quirky tidbit. In one rare satirical papyrus fragment, a fictional court case is staged where two pillows testify against a disgruntled owner. It's believed to be comedic performance or scribal practice, but some argue it reflects genuine anxiety about textile misuse. Historians still argue whether it's parody or political commentary. Either way, the pillows win the case. Back in the bureau, Hetep shows you the dream map wall. A mural where citizen sleep moods are tracked by colored stones, blue for contentment, yellow for prophetic clarity, red for mild chaos, gray means subject woke screaming. You place your first two markers, a blue one for the midwives in Elephantine who report joyful napping, and a red one for a noble in Abydos who dreamt he became a pillow and was sat on for eternity. That night, you lie in bed thinking about all those other heads resting on stones, on linen, on feathers of questionable legality. You think about how no matter how grand the palace, or humble the hut, everyone needs a place to lay their head, preferably not one that judges you in your dreams. You close your eyes. Somewhere, a bureaucrat in a dusty office counts you as a yes on line 3. Did the citizen rest well tonight? You hope so. You're halfway through reorganizing the region for feather-based satisfaction. Index. When Hesepa barges into your office, trailing a cloud of date dust and mischief. Drop the charts, he grunts. We've been summoned to Saqqara. You raise an eyebrow. More sleep complaints. Nope, he says, grinning with a number of teeth that suggests chaos. We're doing a sleep trial for pyramid builders. You stare at him. A what? It turns out, a group of overseers from one of the newer pyramid construction sites has requested a full-scale test. What kind of rest results in the most productive laborers? Specifically, how much difference can the right pillow make in the speed of hauling limestone? It's both laughable and oddly reasonable. You pack your notes and a few comfort-certified cushions. Then, catch a ferry south with Hesepa and Nettie, who's come along in case of goats, drama, or sleep science breakthroughs. The construction site sprawls across the Sakharan Plateau, buzzing with workers. Cranes made from bundled papyrus poles, and the rhythmic grunt of effort echoing between stone walls. The builders sleep in rotating shifts inside communal barracks lined with reeds and sand-packed mats. You're greeted by a foreman named Senpa, barefoot, sunburned, and thrilled about the experiment. "We've cleared a barracks just for your trial," he says. "We call it the Dream Pit. Not in a scary way, just literal. You're escorted into a long mud brick dormitory that smells like sweat, roasted onions, and ambition. Inside, 20 cots have been prepared, 10 with standard issue reed pillows. The other 10, a mix of your team's prototypes, linen bolsters, dual-density cushions, and a goat hair and cedar hybrid that no one remembers designing. Each participant is tagged with a clay medallion and given a sleep journal. Some snicker. Others take it very seriously. One man immediately draws protective runes on his cot and kisses his headrest. "Good dreams, Auntie," he whispers. The trial begins at sunset. You and Nettie observe quietly from a shaded corner, while the test subjects drift off. You scribble notes as snoring emerges in uneven waves. One man tosses, another grumbles about itchy ghosts. The goat hair cushion emits a suspicious crunch. Here's a mainstream fact. While we often imagine Egyptian pyramid laborers as slaves, most were actually paid workers skilled, fed, and sometimes even buried near the sites. They rotated in shifts and lived in surprisingly organized camps. Comfort wasn't luxurious, but it was managed so it's not outlandish that someone, somewhere, might have wondered if better sleep led to better stone alignment. The next morning, you conduct interviews. Group A, the reed pillow sleepers. Report, dreamt I fell into quarry. Woke up sore? Fine. Could have used less lump. Slept sideways. Elbow still missing emotionally. Group B, the prototype pillow testers. Say, slept like a cat in Ra's lap. I saw my grandfather on a cloud yelling, "Good posture." Best sleep since the Ibex Festival. Productivity is measured using the official Egyptian method. Number of stone blocks moved per morning grunt. Group B wins by a margin of 3, 2 grunts and 1 spontaneous hymn of gratitude. But then, the goats arrive. Apparently, someone thought goats would help ground the dream trials. 4 of them trot in during lunch, sniff a cushion, and proceed to eat one of the sleep journals. Nettie sighs. That's the 3rd scroll I've lost to goats this season. The rest of the day is spent reviewing performance charts. You notice that those who slept on dual-layer cushions showed greater concentration and fewer missed chisels. One worker even remembered all 4 verses of the safety song for the first time in weeks. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some scholars believe pyramid workers participated in seasonal rituals tied to their physical well-being, including dream incubation ceremonies. There are records of sleep festivals held near construction sites, where rest was considered both healing and spiritually vital. Whether that included certified cushions is still debated. But hey, you're halfway there. By evening, the foreman is so impressed, he proposes building a permanent pillow optimization chamber near the water station. You gently suggest starting with waterproof pillow covers instead. Before leaving, you're asked to name the prototype line. You dub them the Saqqara Snooze series, with model names like the Builder's Cradle and the Restorer Deluxe. The workers cheer. One tries to barter a goat for your own personal headrest. You politely decline. Back in Thebes, you present your findings to the Ministry of Nightly Affairs. They raise a collective eyebrow but quietly greenlight Phase 2. You suspect this will involve sleep pyramids or ceremonial lullabies. You'll prepare accordingly. That night, you lie in bed, head on your own carefully curated cushion, and drift off thinking of snoring laborers, goat-inspired dreams, and how sometimes, in ancient Egypt, the key to building wonders wasn't just stone, but sleep. You're only 3 bites into a promising date pastry when another scroll interrupts your peace. It's wrapped in fine fabric and sealed with a double spiral meaning diplomatic assignment. You unroll it with a sense of dread. It's from the Ministry of Foreign Relations and Decorative Textiles. You're to travel south to Kush, land of rich dyes, skilled artisans, and intense opinions about ceremonial headrests. Apparently, a diplomatic gift exchange has been arranged between the artisans of Thebes and the Nubian court, centering around, you guessed it, pillows. The pharaoh wants a symbolic gesture of peace and shared dreams. The Nubians, in turn, are offering handcrafted ceremonial headrests carved from ebony and stone, embedded with precious gems, and wrapped in dyed cotton so vibrant it might be legally considered offensive. You're chosen as the courier, because according to the scroll, you are thorough, unthreatening, and unlikely to start a war by accident. Neti is already packing. The journey takes several days by boat, the Nile growing wider, stranger, more muscled with crocodile ripples as you head south. You pass reed islands and lone fishermen, and a temple with a giant statue of Sobek that seems to judge your every breath. The air thickens with incense, mango wood smoke, and just a hint of diplomatic pressure. You arrive in Napata, welcomed by a Kushite envoy named Zalima, who wears a red linen sash and an expression that says, "I have heard of you." I remain unimpressed. She leads you to the craft pavilion, a temporary structure made of woven reeds and bright cloth panels. Inside, dozens of artisans are seated on mats, stitching, carving, muttering. Some use obsidian blades to trim cotton. Others polish inlaid ivory. You present your offering, a Theban pillow set made from Nile goose-down, triple-stitched with sacred geometry, and scented with blue lotus and cedar. The artisans gather round, murmuring. One young man pokes it. "Very soft," he says, "suspiciously soft." Zalima nods. "We like more structure. A pillow should not flatter the head. It should confront it." You're quickly shown the Nubian offering, a trio of ceremonial headrests, one shaped like a lion, another like a falcon, and the third like a recumbent elephant. Each is carved from dense ebony and decorated with gold leaf and embedded garnets. They are stunning. They are also not pillows. You're handed a translation scroll. It explains that these headrests are not meant for sleep, but for soul elevation during rest posture rituals. The idea, Zalima explains, is that by supporting the neck firmly, the spirit is encouraged to rise like steam from tea. You nod slowly. "Beautiful," you say, "and possibly orthopedic." Still, your job is not just to nod, it's to record, reconcile, and recommend. You spend several days observing their craftsmanship. One elder artisan teaches you how to braid cotton strips soaked in herbal dye. Another demonstrates how polished stone can be softened slightly by wrapping it in heated aloe cloth. You scribble feverishly in your notes. Neti steals a handful of indigo thread for experimental sleepwear. Here's a mainstream fact. Nubian artisans were renowned for their woodwork, textiles, and stone carving. They shared cultural and religious ties with Egypt, but retained unique traditions, especially in burial goods and ceremonial furnishings. Exchanges of crafted items were common during diplomatic missions. During a shared supper under a sky so star-filled it looks dusted with crushed pearls, you and Zalima finally speak without the weight of scrolls. You Egyptians think softness means peace, she says, sipping palm wine. And you Kushites think sleep should be a challenge. You reply. She shrugs. Soft things spoil, hard things endure. It's not a compliment, but it's also not an insult. Together, you draft the diplomatic summary. The Egyptian pillow set symbolizes comfort and governance. The Nubian headrests symbolize strength in rest and clarity in dreams. A mutual recognition is proposed. Dual sleep doctrine, one night soft, one night strong. Historians still argue whether this was the birth of multicultural sleep philosophy or just two tired bureaucrats trying to get home. Before you leave, Zalima hands you a small headrest carved from acacia, painted with a single white line. Travel pillow, she says. For clarity during uncertain naps, you tuck it into your bag beside your Theban goose-down roll. A symbol. Perhaps that piece can rest in contrasts, that even opposites can find a shared night's sleep. You return to Thebes with your notes, one sunburned ear, and the peculiar knowledge that diplomacy can, in fact, be conducted through cushion density and neck elevation. You're only just settling back into your rhythm in Thebes, relabeling lunar pillows, taste-testing incense blends for mid-sleep focus, and sketching a concept for something you've tentatively titled the adjustable duvet of eternal peace when everything goes spectacularly sideways. There's a linen shortage. You hear the news from Hisepa, who bursts into your quarters holding a limp, unraveling bolt of cloth like it's just betrayed him. We've hit critical fray, he says gravely, and the public is starting to notice. Apparently, a combination of low Nile flooding, worm infestations, and a botched shipment from the Delta has left most of Upper Egypt dangerously under-pillowcased. Panic hasn't quite set in, but frustration is rising. And if there's one thing you've learned in this job, it's that people will tolerate almost anything except inferior bedtime textiles. The market is already in chaos. Merchants are selling scrap linen by the finger length. One enterprising boy offers pillow illusions made entirely of painted reeds. A noble woman starts hoarding lavender sachets like they're made of gold. And in the southern districts of Thebes, someone sets fire to a decorative bolster in protest. Welcome to the Pillow Riots. Your first official order comes from the Ministry of Nightly Affairs. Stabilize civilian sleep conditions immediately. The memo is stamped with 3 feathers code for urgent and embarrassing. You and Nettie gather your materials. What few remain. Leftover priestly robe trimmings, festival, surplus muslin, and an alarming number of camel hair scraps. You quickly assemble a task force of overworked seamstresses, semi-retired scribes, and a man named Tutu, who claims he once stitched an entire tent in a thunderstorm using only his teeth. Desperate times. Together, you launch the People's Cushion Initiative, rolling out a line of compact comfort modules made from reed husk blends and soft papyrus pulp. They're not elegant, they're not scented, but they stack and they breathe. And most importantly, they exist. You organize distribution centers throughout the city. Sleep stewards are appointed in each district, tasked with evaluating pillow stress levels and reporting flare-ups. You even repurpose temple storage racks into temporary pillow libraries, where citizens can borrow headrests for ritual nights or emotional emergencies. Here's a mainstream fact. During crises, ancient Egypt often relied on local temple networks and civil officials to manage supply shortages. Grain, oil, linen, all were redistributed through bureaucratic channels. Your modern pillow plan isn't too far off. You just added branding. Still, not everyone is soothed. A group of artisan pillow purists gather near the Hall of Records, chanting feathers for all and waving banners embroidered with down-filled rhetoric. Some accuse you of diluting tradition. Others blame Nubian trade policies. One woman hurls a goose feather at your head and screams, "This was once soft." In response, you hold a public rest forum, inviting citizens to voice their pillow grievances. Among the highlights, a tax collector demands linen compensation for emotional fatigue. A fishmonger describes her dreams as less cozy, more cubic. A child insists that his replacement bolster smells like sad goats. You listen. You take notes. You promise nothing, but you nod a lot. Behind the scenes, Hesepa pulls strings with the Scribes Guild and convinces a few reluctant nobles to donate personal linen caches. One priest offers a ceremonial robe last worn during a moon eclipse, which Nettie immediately repurposes into 4 luxurious side sleepers and a surprisingly elegant wedge. Then, a miracle. A shipment arrives from Elephantine. Linen, muslin, even a few bolts of rare Kushite cotton. The crowd at the riverbank cheers like Ra himself has descended with a pillow under each arm. You oversee the redistribution with solemn ceremony. A small girl is given the first finished headrest, and the look on her face, pure relief, nearly unravels you, more than the linen shortage ever could. Here's your quirky tidbit. One obscure funerary text refers to the Great Sleep Withheld, an allegorical tale where the gods remove all pillows from the mortal world until a mortal proves themselves worthy by crafting a dream so soft it cannot be measured. Some scholars believe it's satire. Others suspect it was a very early anti-hoarding parable. Historians still argue whether that story was ever widely told or just the work of one sleep-deprived priest with too much access to ink. By week's end, the riots have subsided. People are sleeping again, not extravagantly, not perfumed in frankincense and dreams of cosmic wisdom, but sleeping. You return to your cot, collapse with every muscle humming in protest, and feel your head sink into the latest prototype, half reed pulp, half festival robe. Lightly scented with gratitude and exhaustion, it's perfect. For now, the end begins not with a bang, but with a polite tap on your chamber door and a scroll bearing just 3 words. One final count. It's from Hesepa, Of course, no ceremony, no flourished stamp, no feather-framed drama, just a quiet instruction. You rise before dawn. The sky outside your window is still holding its breath, a pale watercolor of lavender and sand. Thebes is silent. Even the garlic hawker hasn't begun shouting yet. It feels like a city suspended in that final inhale before the dream ends. You dress without rushing. Pack your stylus and your softest reed brush, and tuck your first ledger, the one from your very first day, under your arm. Just for nostalgia, just in case. The location is unfamiliar. A small storeroom nestled deep beneath the Temple of Osiris, a place used only for highly sensitive inventory. As the note puts it, you descend through tight corridors and humid stone halls until you find a sealed chamber lit by one flickering oil lamp and one remarkably well-rested priest. "You're here," the priest says, rising. He doesn't introduce himself, just gestures to a cedar box at the center of the room. Inside lies the most elaborate ceremonial pillow you've ever seen. It's enormous, nearly half the length of a standard cot, wrapped in gold-stitched linen. Its casing covered in protective glyphs, tiny blue lotus petals tucked into each seam. In the center rests a circular emblem, a cartouche, but the name inside has been intentionally erased. Polished smooth, unclaimed. You clear your throat. "What's the designation?" The priest shrugs. "No record, no assignment. It's just here." Nettie arrives moments later, eyes wide. "That's the Una-scribed dream rest," she whispers. "Some say it was made for a royal who vanished. Others think it was meant for a god who never returned. No one touches it." You look down at the empty cartouche, then back at your ledger. Well, someone has to count it. And so, you do. You record the measurements. You catalog the stitching. You weigh it twice. Just to be sure, you gently press its center. It exhales a faint scent of sandalwood and rain. There's something ageless about it. Something waiting. Here's your mainstream fact. In rare cases, ancient Egyptians left burial goods without names, believing they could be claimed by wandering spirits or ancestors yet unborn. These items were often crafted with exquisite care, prepared for someone the world hadn't met yet or would never meet at all. You log the pillow as item 7295, origin unknown, function ceremonial, unclaimed. Perfectly preserved. You close the ledger, gently, almost reverently. Nettie says nothing. She doesn't need to. Later, you find yourself alone in the courtyard behind the temple. The sun is high now, and Thebes is bustling once more. But the noise feels distant, soft, like it's happening behind a curtain. You pull out your old notebook, flip past dozens of pages counting scrolls, curse assessments, the lunar dream table, the experimental goat pillow index, all of it. Years of fluff and thread and nighttime bureaucracy. You draw one last sketch, a pillow, blank cartouche, empty but expectant. That night, Hesepa joins you for a quiet supper. No speeches, just lentils and cool beer. Afterward, he grunts, "You've done your counts. More than most." You smile, even the cursed ones, especially those. He stands. You're free to sleep now. And he walks away. You return to your cot one final time. Your room is unchanged. Dusty, soft-edged, shaped by the same moonlight that's watched you since the start. You lie down, close your eyes, and let the linen cradle your skull like it always has. Not a high priest, not a noble, just someone who counted what others overlooked. The dreams come slowly, and then they don't stop. The air grows still. The night hums gently through reed windows and across cool, worn stone. Somewhere, a goat stirs and then settles again, its hooves making soft impressions in the dust. You're no longer moving. The count is done. The scribbles have quieted. Even your stylus rests tucked beneath the edge of a folded linen you once cataloged and forgot to return. In the distance, the Nile moves like breath, not rushing, not flowing, just breathing. The same way your chest rises now, gently, evenly, as if the gods themselves were smoothing your pulse into the rhythm of a lullaby. You lie beneath a sky you cannot see, but you know the stars are still there, hovering like tiny, glowing headrests, each one a cradle for some forgotten wish. The moon doesn't need to whisper tonight. It knows you've heard enough names, enough dreams, enough reasons to care about how someone, somewhere, finds sleep. The breeze cools slightly. The edge of the pillow beneath your cheek warms just enough to remind you, yes, this is yours. For once, no feather crisis, no riot, no cursed dreams in need of documentation. Just this moment, just this breath, just this softness. You might still dream tonight, you might not. Either way, there's nothing more to count. There never was.